Now in this video, we're going to be looking at this CBS poll that shows massive support for what President Trump has been doing. And of course, this is bad news for the Democratic Party because their primary strategy has been anti-Trump. Now, before we get to their meltdowns, which there's plenty of them, let's first look at what this CBS poll actually shows.
Our CBS poll finds that a majority of Americans, 53%, approve of the job he's doing. That's a better approval number than he ever reached during his first term in the White House. Joining us with more is our Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Good to see you, Anthony. What's driving this?
I will keep it simple, Margaret. He's doing, in the eyes of the public, what he said he would do in the campaign. There's political value in that. In fact, 70% of people say he's doing what he promised. That's whether they approve of him or not. Now, there's another part of this that continues over from the campaign. There were words that he was described as being tough, being energetic, and he still is today in big majority numbers. So as people take a look in these first few weeks, there's been a lot of activity. They're getting that general sense of governance, and that's being reflected in these early numbers.
So that's perception. What about the actual policies?
Well, let's start with the ones that are popular. And again, these echo a lot of what we saw in the campaign. The idea of deporting those in the country illegally continues to be popular. We saw that in the campaign. Sending troops to the U.S.-Mexico border, again, majority in favor. We'd seen that in the campaign. For his supporters in particular, the focus on ending DEI is popular. We had seen in the campaign, a lot of them thought those processes had gone too far.
All right, so what does this CBS poll tell us, and why is it a nightmare for the Democratic Party? Well, one, all these protests that you were seeing erupt around the nation in regards to deporting illegal aliens, clearly that's not the actual story. The reality is 60% of Americans believe that we should be deporting illegal immigrants, okay? And the second number that is truly a nightmare, clearly 70% of Americans, and now we're talking Republicans, Democrats, and independents, believe that he's doing exactly what they expected him to do. And obviously the final one is the approval rating, which for someone who they call Hitler and someone who's going to destroy the Constitution and our democracy, it's funny that majority of American people approve of what he's doing. And I believe part of that is because we all know that President Trump has trust in what Elon Musk is doing, no matter how many times the media tries to question him on that. Take a look.
I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
Bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it. But I told him to do that. Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse. And, you know, the people elected me on that.
Now, me and you know that is the truth. This is what people want, but it doesn't matter because the Democrats, they're stubborn. They are digging this hole even deeper because now a new talking memo has gone out. And the new buzzword is constitutional crisis. That's exactly what President Trump and Elon Musk is doing to our great country, according to these Democrats. Let me show you an example of that. Here's Congressman Chris Murphy explaining this.
You have used incredibly strong language, a constitutional crisis, grossly unconstitutional, pretty alarming language.
Yeah, listen, I think this is the most serious constitutional crisis the country has faced. Certainly since Watergate, the president is attempting to seize control of power and for corrupt purposes. The president wants to be able to decide how and where money is spent so that he can reward his political friends, he can punish his political enemies. That is the evisceration of democracy. You stand that next to the wholesale endorsement of political violence with the pardons given to every single January 6 rioter, including the most violent who beat police officers over the head with baseball bats. And you can see what he's trying to do here. He is trying to crush his opposition by making them afraid of losing federal funding, by making them afraid of physical violence. And so, yes, this is a red alert moment when this entire country has to understand that our democracy is at risk. And for what? The billionaire takeover of government.
Yeah, so what I find funny is that they always forget what happened over the past 4 years, right? How the media, the White House press corps, Democrats clearly covered up what happened with Joe Biden. We know that. And to make matters worse, when he was going out the door, he preemptively pardoned his entire family and not only commuted the sentences of 37 convicted murderers. But hey, we don't want to talk about that, right? Now, here is Speaker Mike Johnson and what he has to say about what's really going on here.
Every country around the world recognizes America as the last great superpower. We are the good guys. We are the biggest humanitarians on the planet, the most benevolent nation that has ever been in history. And we do some good things in USAID. I am comforted to know that Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and folks are actually sitting down line by line and going through, eliminating the abuses of taxpayer dollars and defining and protecting the things that are certainly in America's interest and are the right thing to do, as you said. So we'll get this sorted out. But I think that effort is long overdue. And when Congress has been requesting oversight of these dollars for years now, it's been hidden from us, the persons who are given the constitutional responsibility of oversight. So having an independent audit again, having access to the files to dig this stuff out is a good thing for the country, and we support it.
All right, so just a few things here. Number one, the reason why Congress hasn't been able to get the information about where our tax dollars are really going is because these agencies fall under the executive branch, which brings me to point number two. That's why Elon Musk and these Doge employees, who are federal employees, by the way, have access to this information and should have access to the information because they fall under the executive branch. They answer to who? The President of the United States. And this brings me to three. The Democrats, they don't have a strategy whatsoever because when Senator Booker went onto the news this morning, and I think he had a tough time explaining exactly what the Democratic Party plans to do.
When it comes to the tools in your toolbox, there aren't a lot of them. One of them is to try to stop the government funding, to try to do maybe even default on the debt, as I said, or at least force that if the Republicans don't change course. Is that the strategy?
Let me just put it pointedly. The strategy is to do whatever we can to stop Donald Trump from hurting Americans, from making us less safe, less secure, and from raising our costs. We will look at every single tool in our toolbox, as we've done this last week, to make sure that we stop him from hurting people. At the end of the day, Donald Trump has promised America, I will bring down your costs and I'll make you safer. He clearly is doing the opposite. In addition to that, he's opening the floodgates for corruption in our system. From getting rid of inspector generals who have a track record under Democrat and Republican presidents of saving Americans billions of dollars from waste, fraud, and abuse, to letting Elon Musk, one of our biggest government contractors, one of our biggest military contractors, have access to America's most personal information, from your grandparents' medical information all the way down to people's Social Security information and other things.
All right, so if I was a Democratic strategist, I'd tell them to stop doing interviews because they don't know what they're talking about. All right, number one, clearly America is safer because we've been deporting illegal aliens who are part of notorious gangs. Okay, that's number one. Number two, yes, he has opened the floodgates, but not to massive corruption. No, he's opened the floodgates that has exposed massive corruption. And again, they don't want to put any attention on what has been found. They want to put the attention on who's finding it, which is Elon Musk and the Doge team.
He owns several businesses where personal data and personal information could benefit his financial interests. And the sources that I've been talking to within the FBI are actually terrified that he is trying to put people within the FBI in order to advance his financial interests. One example of that is he wants the FBI to start using Starlink. So how frightening is that? The fact that he is putting people with
Starlink is his own internet company,
which is his own internet company. He wants FBI to start using Starlink to start tracking people. Now, that is terrifying to me that he's not acting, as Scott likes to say, on behalf of the president. He is acting on behalf of himself. And I think people should be very scared about that.
You're terrified that the FBI might have the internet? I mean,
I'm terrified.
I'm
terrified that Elon Musk is putting people in federal agencies to figure out business opportunities for him.
Yeah, it's just like I stated. They're more focused on Elon Musk and the employees of Doge instead of on the corruption that they have found through this audit, the fraud, waste, and abuse that clearly will upset all Americans because People work hard, and then in the end, they have to pay a lot of taxes. That's why I said this is an issue that they will lose on every single time, because this entire debate is rooted around common sense. We should know exactly where all the money is going.
And you know that's true, Scott.
This is the richest man in the world. This man,
that's concerning.
And he's like sleeping on on the floor of a government office building 7 days a week in order to help this government. The spending is interesting. We're not going to balance the budget based on these spending cuts, although some of this stuff is patently, objectively ridiculous. And when I see Democrats rushing out to defend some of the things that he's cutting, I mean, it makes the Democratic Party sink to very low levels. But what I see him actually doing, and the most important thing he's doing, is enforcing the doctrine of common sense. This was the doctrine that Trump laid out in his inaugural address. What is the ideology of the Republican Party right now? It is best described as enforcement of common sense. We have uncommon nonsense on the left, and we have common sense. And when you look at what the government is doing, agency after agency, in spending some of our money, we're not going to balance it on a $79,000 grant here or there, but we are going to restore common sense, and that's the point.
That is the point. It is an enforcement of common sense. And once Elon Musk makes it over to Department of Defense and truly shows the fraud, waste, and abuse that exists over there, I wonder what the Democrats will say then. But as it stands now, their only reaction to all of this is that American people are scared and they're frightened at what Elon Musk is doing because of the information he has access to. The problem, though, is the poll at the beginning of this video says otherwise. I don't believe that's what American people are actually thinking about. That's what you guys are thinking about, of course. Now, here's Congressman Burchard, who also had a common sense reaction to this entire debate.
Listen, there are concerns from some Americans over Elon Musk's methods in going through these agencies, accessing what is very vulnerable data. Why are you confident this is secure?
I'm confident it's secure just because of the caliber of the people that they have doing it. It's odd to me that the Democrats are sniping at these young folks, and they're 19, 20, 21, 2-year-old folks, but you've got seniors in both parties who are inept of any cognitive skills almost, and are incapable of governing. And we've seen that in the past, and they've embarrassed us in the national press. We've had them fall down. We've had them stumble and verbally in press conferences. And so I have total confidence in this group.
What stood out to me about what Congressman Burchard said is that these young individuals who are working for Elon Musk, who are federal employees who do have the clearance to access the information, these just are not your regular 19, 20, 21 years old. I mean, these are individuals who really have the skills for what is being asked of them to do. And we're talking to use AI and coding to audit government agencies in a matter of days, when usually it'd probably take a matter of months, if not years. This is why the Department of Defense can't pass an audit to save their life, because they don't even have the technology or the will to truly find out where every dollar has been going. And the fact that it is taking software engineers to get this done, I don't believe the Democratic Party can even comprehend exactly what's happening here. So I think that also contributes to the freak out. But again, that's not what they're saying. They're going to the whole term of constitutional crisis. Here's another example of that.
We know this week a federal judge will come to some kind of hearing and decision, perhaps, on what happens to all those government workers. Are the courts the main line of defense here?
Yeah, I mean, what we are witnessing is a constitutional crisis. We are seeing an executive branch that has decided that they are no longer going to abide by the Constitution in honoring Congress's role in the creation of the agencies, in their role in deciding where money is allocated. And so the only recourse we have, since our congressional leadership, the speaker, will not stop the executive, is through the judiciary. And this is, when you think about the checks and balances that we have, the courts are the only recourse we have at the moment.
Here is what the facts really are. The president does not have the authority to get rid of government agencies that reside in the executive branch. However, he does have the ability to change their responsibilities. He can lay off workers within those agencies. Again, he can minimize them. He can redirect funding. He could do everything except actually getting rid of the agency itself on paper. Okay. And so the problem, though, is that Democrats are calling it a constitutional crisis, and it's not. It's a restructuring of responsibilities, finding all the tax dollars, a true audit, and making sure that the government is efficient. It's that simple. And then what will need to happen is Congress will have to catch up to President Trump by passing laws to support what he has done. And that's where things get interesting. And that's why Democrats are already threatening to shut down the government as a response.
What we're seeing right now with the Trump administration over the last week is just very clearly an American retreat when it comes to the rest of the world. Handing this over, like China doesn't even need to fight for their influence around the world now because of our own effort. We're doing China's work for them. And I hope that the American people understand just how dire a situation this is going to be, something that makes it more likely that we see conflicts, may have to use our own troops. And also, this is something that affects our ability to be able to access other markets, to grow our economy. So this has very tangible impacts, and this is going to be devastating to our nation's national security.
Okay, so who's going to tell the senator, that is Andy Kim, that what he has been describing is exactly what happened over the past 4 years? It was Hunter Biden using Joe Biden's political influence in order to financially benefit from that relationship. It was Joe Biden that saw record inflation that clearly turned our economy into a crisis. And as far as foreign conflicts go, well, the disaster in Afghanistan led to 2 wars during that administration. So I'm not too sure where the senator is going with what he is saying. Now, part of the main issue with the Democratic Party is twofold. One, they refuse to admit that they are tone deaf on cultural issues. And 2, they refuse to admit that there's even a problem. So they double down on the same losing message. Let me show you an example of that.
Elaine Kamarck, who is a longtime Democratic strategist, she co-authored a report on what went wrong, where your party should go from here. She told me this week that Democrats are tone deaf on cultural issues. Is that a problem that you agree with, and should it be changed?
Again, these sweeping conclusions about every person who claims to be a Democrat in America is, to me, absurd. The reality is I work in a caucus of 47 people who have been standing up and fighting for the Americans in their state as best as they can. When they stand up and say hiring processes should be inclusive of women and minorities who often don't get an opportunity to apply for the jobs because the search parameters are so narrow and so small, that we should look at ways of searching our college campuses for better talent, making sure that we have diverse teams.
Yeah, so as you guys can see, they're still stuck in the same rhetoric. And I think overall, their main problem is they're not tired of losing, okay? We're definitely not tired of winning. And so much has happened over the past 3 weeks that continues to show that they are not ready for what Trump is continuing to do. Okay, so let me get your guys' answers in the comment section below to this. Do you agree with the Democratic Party that having a billionaire by the name of Elon Musk and his team having access to sensitive information is a true issue in all of this? Do you believe that what they are doing is looking to financially benefit off this audit? Let me know what your guys' thoughts are about all this in the comment section below. Now, obviously, the only move that the Democratic Party has at this point is to sue President Trump so they can stop Elon Musk and Doge from having access to these different agencies. They did find some success because a federal judge did rule that Elon Musk and Doge cannot access the Treasury's database. Now, how can you audit something you don't have access to? I don't know. But if you missed out on that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.